reasonablefaith.org. As we're talking about the new atheism, Daniel Dennett is another author. He's got a best-selling book called Breaking the Spell.
Yes.
Implications there of religion. What is his take?
Well, again, Dennett is an interesting character. I was just at a conference with him in New Orleans a couple of months ago on atheism and theism, and he was debating Alistair McGrath on this topic. And then several of us were invited to give comments on the whole debate. I was one of them. Keith Parsons was another. And I decided I would look at Dennett's response to the typical arguments for the existence of God, since he doesn't think there are any good reasons. And again, Kevin, I was shocked. This man is an eminent philosopher at Tufts University. This is not some popularizer. And yet, if you looked at his responses to the typical arguments for the existence of God, George Smith does a better job, a popularizer than what Dennett did. For example, his response to the Kalam cosmological argument, which says that whatever begins to exist has a cause, the universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. He agrees with the first premise, that anything that begins to exist must have a cause that brings it into being. He agrees with the second premise. He thinks the universe began to exist and that the Big Bang gives good evidence of that. So he agrees with the conclusion, the universe has a cause. But here's his answer to the argument. Yeah, the universe has a cause. The universe caused itself. The universe brought itself into being. He says it's the ultimate bootstrapping trick. The universe, pulled itself up by its own bootstraps. It brought itself into existence. And I pointed out to him, in order for the universe to bring itself into existence, it would have to exist before it existed.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not self-caused. It would be uncaused. It would come out of nothing. So his view would be that the universe had to exist before it existed, which is a self-contradiction.
Yeah.
It's logically incoherent. And yet this was his response to the cosmological argument.
Yeah, imagine he'll find another one after that conference.
I think so. It was funny because after I presented my response, there was applause from the audience, and then he was invited to give an impromptu reaction. And he walked up to the podium and he just stood there looking out at the audience for a minute or a moment in silence. And then he said, "That was a virtuoso performance."
A good compliment.
And basically had nothing more to say. What his answer was, well, he said, I guess what this shows is that when you have plausible premises leading to an implausible conclusion, then I guess you've got to go back and deny one of those plausible premises after all. And that was his response.
Yeah. He seems to kind of lean on psychology a little bit and evolution, Darwinian evolution, as an explanation for how religion evolved. And I'm not totally familiar with the argument there. You may be.
Well,
Bill,
he's a Richard Dawkins fan in that he thinks there are these things called memes, which are kind of like cultural, not institutions, or cultural factors or features that get spread by reproducing themselves.
They're
almost
like
genes biologically, except they're cultural. They're called memes. They're like cultural genes. And religion would be one of these. Well, in the Q&A, what I pointed out to him, I said, if that's true, and he thinks that everything we think is like that, all of our ideas are like that. I said, if that's true, that would apply to your own ideas as well. Really, what you've been sharing with us here, this idea of these memes, this is just sort of like a contagion that you've caught from Richard Dawkins, and you're just sharing with us this intellectual disease that you've contracted.
My view on memes is caused by memes.
Right, and so it was really a self-defeating position if taken seriously. And again, he really didn't have any good answer to this self-refuting position he was in. It's like the man who saws off the branch that he's seated on.
I'm sure that there are psychological factors that can explain various expressions of religion and rituals of religion and things like that, but the origin of religion, or especially when it comes to the existence of God, That doesn't seem to me, Bill, to be a psychological issue.
Well, it seems to me that one is committing what's called the genetic fallacy here. This is a very famous and well-known fallacy among philosophers, which is the attempt to invalidate a position by showing how it originated. You try to invalidate a position by showing how a person came to believe that. So, for example, an example of the genetic fallacy would say, well, you believe in democracy just because you were raised in America. That's the only reason you think democracy is the best. So you try to invalidate the person's point of view by showing how he came to believe that. Well, you see, even if it were true that I came to believe in God because of the influence of my parents or my culture or society, that is completely irrelevant to the truth or the falsity of that belief. You can't invalidate a belief by showing how it came to be held. That's the genetic fallacy. Even if my belief is the product of psychological and social factors, it could still be true.
If Hitler says rain is wet, rain is still wet.
Exactly.
You can't discount the wetness of rain just because Hitler said it.
No, I mean, suppose I came to believe that the earth is round because I read it in a fortune cookie. Well, that's a totally unreliable source of information, but the belief is still true. So it's just a very common fallacy called the genetic fallacy. And folks should watch out for this because you hear it in different contexts all the time, where folks will try to say that what you think or believe is false because they can explain how you came to hold that belief.
As we end our time together today, Bill, it seems that the bottom line is worldview. If you're committed to a particular worldview, how you view the world, the glasses through which you view everything and so on, your assumptions that you hold, if you're committed to a specific worldview, then you will make the evidence fit that view sometimes. You'll force fit it and so on. The commitment of Dawkins and Dennett and others is naturalism.
Yes.
There's nothing beyond nature. And that really seems to come out in their books.
I think that's right. If a person has a strong enough commitment to naturalism, say, for example, or any worldview, then one will do what Dennett did in the face of my arguments. He'll say, well, I guess that one of those very plausible premises has to be false after all. If you believe strong enough in a presupposition, then anything contrary to that, you're just going to deny. Now, fortunately, Kevin, for some people who aren't so deeply committed, who are more open-minded, a good argument can lead them to change their worldview or their assumption. And so it's those open-minded people that represent what Jesus called the good soil that is open to the reception of the message and to good reasons for it. And so when we talk to folks, I typically am not interested in talking or debating with a person who's totally close-minded, frankly. I don't see much good in it. But if I sense there's an honest seeker who's got real questions and really is looking for answers, that's the kind of person I want to talk to.